told you I'd be back in a snap. Okay, so here's what's going on. I feel like last time I had a little bit of maybe performance anxiety. Let me rephrase that. I had a little performance anxiety, so this is what I'm thinking. I ended up with this guy. I was playing around with him, trying to get a pose that I liked. I wasn't. I'm having trouble because, like I said, I made him too big. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start over again. And in making that decision, at first I was thinking, should I just do that off camera and then come back with another completed maquette, or should I just start the whole thing over? But then I thought, the point of this, making this demonstration, tutorial, whatever it is to kind of show the process that I go through. And this is a totally typical process. Is I'll start something, I'll go down one road, I'll realize I need to backtrack. C.S. Lewis has one of my favorite quotes, and I'm going to totally paraphrase here, but he says, "The most progressive person is the one who realizes he's going down the wrong road first," or something like that. And so the most progressive man is the one who turns back first. I'll just use the magics of editing to put the real quote here. Okay, so that being said, and I said it so well, eloquence is my middle name. It's not really, it's Caleb. Sometimes I forget how to spell it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go back to my roots a little bit. I've taught a lot of little classes for beginners, obviously, since I'm not like some great professional. It's true. I'm sorry to break it to you. I'm not a fantastic sculptor. Pretty middle of the road. If you don't believe me, type up on the internoodle like Adam Bean or Jordu Shell. I'm not going to tell you how to spell that. And you'll see that I'm pretty middle of the road, all right? So this is for beginners. And boy, I went off on a rabbit trail. Right, back to the beginning, back to my roots. Okay, so the roots is teaching beginners classes. And so since last time I was talking to you, my gentle viewer, and had cameras going and batteries dying and all the rigmarole that goes along with producing a high quality YouTube video such as this, I probably made some bad decisions because of that pressure. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in someone who is a beginner sculptor, and I'm going to kind of teach him the general basics of polymer clay, the Super Sculpey I was working with, and we're just going to start again. So like it or not, that's what's happening. All right, so let me introduce Angel.
Hello.
This is Angel. He's my friend. So we're going to basically, I'm going to make a new Colossus maquette, and as I said last time, always use reference. So Angel is going to make a skull and or skinless face. It's up to him. Maybe both. So he has reference. 3D reference is the best reference because look, you could turn it all around and see it from all the three-dimensional angles. All right, so here we are. We're about to start this beautiful demonstration of Angel, or Angel if you're from Colombia, which I'm not. Okay, now I ran to Michael's and they were out of Super Sculpey Firm, so instead we get Super Sculpey, the pink stuff. The advantage to this is that it's much softer, which is also the disadvantage. Especially when you're making a maquette, because if you make something very large and try to pose it, it's going to go, have performance anxiety, like me. Okay, so this guy was, like I said, was too big. I was trying to pose him. He's just got so much weight up here. So I'm going to make two vital differences this time. The first is that I'm going to make a core out of aluminum foil, and that will keep the weight much lower. And the second is I'm going to make him much smaller. So, and while I do that, since you've kind of already seen that process of, bulking them out and all that kind of stuff, I'm also going to be giving tips to Angel, and hopefully his questions will mirror some of your own. And if not, then I guess it's his problem, right? Yeah. He's not a spokesperson for the people, Okay, so have a piece of thing. Here's your first step. Grab some foil. Wad it up into a ball. Now, in your case, you're doing basically a ball. Usually when I do heads, I'll pretty much just make a close to a sphere, kind of a squished sphere, because it's the back hemisphere of the head is kind of a egg shaped, basically. And the face, you don't have to worry about filling that in with foil. Why don't you go ahead? Yeah, that's give you a little bit more. Wrap that one more time. Yeah, that's good. So in my case, since I want to make this guy half the size, this is way too big. So it's a good thing aluminum foil is cheap. Or aluminium, if you're British. Which I'm not. Okay. That's a better torso for me. Boop. Okay, so grab some of this and start softening it up just by kneading it. Fold it back and forward, squish it around, make snakes. Okay, so what I like to do is, when I'm basically prepping the clay, is I'll squish it to basically make little layers, right? So when I'm putting the clay on, I can just rip a piece, put it on a spot, put it on a spot, and you just kind of layer it up that way.
So you don't just like wrap it around, you actually just tear it apart and then knead it together, not knead it, but like
sometimes I do.
Smooth it together. Okay.
The reason that I don't just wrap the entire foil thing is you just have a little more control with how thick you're putting it on as you do it this way. It takes a little longer, but it actually saves time in the long run, because when you just pile it on, you end up spending a lot of time kind of smoothing it down with your thumbs.
Okay.
Basically, you spend more time redistributing the clay than you do if you rip it off and you kind of put it on in a more controlled way.
That's what I'm trying to run into here.
Okay, as another quick aside, because typically when you make a thing out of Sculpey, you're going to bake it. In my case, I'm making a maquette, so I don't really care about baking it, but usually you do. And having an aluminum foil core makes it so that it's thinner all around, and so you bake it for less time and it's less prone to cracking. The thicker the Sculpey is, the more likely it is to crack.
Oh, so when you say that, you mean basically you can make it thin like this, and it won't.
Yeah,
you won't have too much problems with cracking.
Right. It's totally fine to be super thin. I mean, it's more prone to breaking after it's baked, like dropping it or moving it around. But yeah, it's fine to have one part where it's a sliver of Sculpey and another part where it's half an inch of Sculpey. You just have to bake it as long as the thickest part is. So if you've got a half-inch piece of Sculpey, you need to bake it for at least half an hour. But if it's very thin all around, sometimes 15 or 20 minutes is fine. The thin parts will darken more than the thicker parts if you're having to bake it for a long time. which is only a problem if you're not going to paint it or you're only staining it. But otherwise, it doesn't matter.
Okay, I think I'm good.
Pretty good egg there. Okay. Now, basically, okay, so what you've got is kind of an asteroid, right? It's very lumpy all over. So this is a part where, you know, you can clearly see this divot here. So it takes some clay and just fill it in.
Okay.
And just do that until you got a smoother egg shape.
Gotcha.
Let me see what you got so far.
Sure.
Okay, so here's a hint for smoothing Sculpey down in general. When you grab a chunk, because it's so soft, if you're holding it with one hand and smoothing it with the other hand, a lot of times you'll end up getting divots from the holding hand. So what I tend to try to do is try to be symmetrical with it. I try to use both my hands at once to smooth. That way where the divots end up is always on the same side, basically. So kind of, okay, I didn't show you this yet, but I showed it in the last tutorial. It helps to just kind of draw yourself basic line so that you have some idea. Okay, I've decided this is the center. So from the center, you can start smoothing out. And you can see where you want to start filling in areas and stuff like that.
Okay.
Get you better symmetry. So let's see, where are we? Okay, so Angel's got a shape now. We can look at it next to the actual model he's going to be attempting. And if you line it up, you can see. Okay. You can see how close it is to the width and everything. So basically what I'm saying is this is a fine point at which to start adding the rest of it. So basically you're going to be adding a face hanging off of that. So there's two ways you can do that. You can do another clump of foil, but for beginners, usually I recommend not, because you're going to end up running into your foil more often than not. So basically you're going to make another, essentially an egg-shaped thing.
But no foil this time?
No.
Okay. Smaller or roughly the same size? Or how?
About half the size. Let's see what you got so far. Okay, so another tip is I continually redraw the lines as I smush them out.
Okay.
So just so I can keep that reference.
Yeah.
So basically, you've got this part, and you need to add that part. So try to work from as simple and smooth a chunk as I can. So egg shapes typically work really well for almost everything.
Nice.
So if you just put it on there, right, you're gonna end up with a weird sticky out face. So if you just take your thumb, squash it like so. I'm doing a pinching thing, right? And then you put it on there, and you've got that natural curve that follows the sphere.
Okay.
And probably need it to be about there. Okay, so doing that, and you don't have to worry about it being perfect at this point. Just,
and then draw a line on it too.
yeah, draw your line. And then this is the part where coming in and just like filling in with little blobs, you know, doing the thing where you're just tearing bits off and just fill in as you go. Now what I'm doing here is I'm going to make little tiny cores for the arms, because I know from posing this guy that the arms are so large in proportion to the rest of the body that they get heavy, and so I'll pose it and it'll just kind of flop and bend. So especially since I'm using regular super Sculpey instead of firm, it's much more flexible.
So I basically feel like I filled that part in. Should I start filling the front, or?
The next thing you want to do is you want to make a cylinder to make a neck stump, even though there's not one here.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to end up...
Oh, yeah. Good point. Okay.
It's a great place to just kind of hold it while you're working on it.
Right,
so
right. Okay.
I would actually use this. Watch this. Here's a good trick. Let's do this.
Oh, nice.
Instant neck. So smooth that up into there. Oh, let me show you a quick trick.
Sure.
Here's a quick tip. Okay, so if you need to add a lot of mass to something, you can just pile the Sculpey on, but that just thickens it up more and uses more material. So something that I tend to do a lot is I'm just not afraid to go in, basically do this lobotomy type maneuver. Oh, it's pretty deep there.
It's just disturbing watching this. There's the brain.
Tear it up. And then...
Oh, okay.
This is another huge reason you do not want to take it to detail level 2 before you have all your proportions laid out, because otherwise that's very painful to start moving stuff around and ripping stuff up.
So when it's in the oven, does the aluminum foil turn
No,
to
the
crisp,
aluminum
or...
foil doesn't.
Okay, so it stays there forever and ever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, with the neat thing about Sculpey is that it doesn't shrink at all, and having foil inside doesn't hurt it at all. Yeah, so go ahead and...
Cool, okay.
So I've actually decided to use a little bit of armature wire. This is aluminum, or aluminium, if you live in Britain, which I don't.
So most of the structural support that you use is aluminum?
Yeah. Aluminum is nice because it's easy to bend. It doesn't change shape and sizes when you're baking it. And because I'm at such a low stage of detail, it's no problem for me to just grind these armature bits right in there.
How's it so far?
Well, that's really good. So, you can see by just holding a line. Let me hold it towards the camera. Just hold your tool across. When you're doing a 1-to-1 ratio object, it's really darn nice. So you can see the lips are right around there. So you can actually just kind of.
Okay. So I need to make the chin longer, probably.
Yeah, it's probably going to need to go down a little bit. And just make sure that you also drop the jaw probably down to about there, right?
Oh, it needs to go lower. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's some...
Oh, yeah, there's definitely...
There's a tilt to it, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want it to go straight across.
Right.
But since you're going to be lowering the jaw, I'd say about that far.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, time for a tip. So if you want to make hands for your character, the easiest way to go about that to make sure that they're symmetrical, they have the same amount of clay and stuff, is basically roll a cylinder. Okay, take and try to cut it straight. Okay, so you've got, this is going to be the material for 2 hands. Now you cut that in half, as close to half as you can, and that way you make sure that you're working with about the same amount of material. Okay. And I just kind of squish them down. Now I try to kind of pinch one area smaller so that it's got a bit of an angle going to it. This is going to be where the fingers are, and this is going to be where it attaches to the wrist. Because when you look at a hand, it tends to feather out like that. When you put them down and you look at them, if you're pretty confident that you have about the same thickness on both of them, but one seems a little bigger, well, again, that's why you start very rough. You can cut a little bit off and try to get it to be symmetrical at this stage. Keeping things symmetrical through all the stages of detail is very helpful. And it does not take that much time. Okay, so now that I have them, I'm gonna cut in my fingers. First, I'm gonna do the thumb. Now, the thumb always goes up to about the first row of knuckles, a little bit higher than that. So you can draw out where you want your knuckles to be. And then cut that part out. Now you've got little mittens. Now at this stage, I'm kind of pinching the finger parts closer because the fingers are going to be thinner than the whole palm of the hand. And just go in. Oh, okay. Here's a before you cut all the way through, you can make kind of gentle lines to give your to make sure that they're spaced out properly. And you do that when I'm putting lines on the clay. I'm not doing it like a pencil where you're like drawing in. I'm just dragging the edge of the tool gently along the clay. It's really a gentle sideways movement rather than drawing. Let's see what you've got going on.
I'm about to put on the lips.
Looking good. Okay, so it's always good to look at it in profile. Oh, I guess for you would want to look at it.
Yeah.
So.
Trying to ignore the lips because I just started.
Oh yeah. The important thing is that they're in the right place, right? In general, so yeah, I think you're coming along just good, just fine. Okay, so after you've drawn your lines and you're relatively happy with them, you go in and you press all the way through. Now in this case, I'm seeing where this line is on this area. It's cutting too far to one side, so I'm just going to drag another one to where it's proportioned better. Just kind of spread them apart. One thing you don't want to worry about at this point is how long they are. The important thing is to get them rounded out and distributed along the knuckles correctly. Thickness right now is more important than length. Let me rephrase that. There's really no way to rephrase that. That's just the way it is. What I'm basically doing with my fingers is my literal human fingers, is I'm twisting and rolling slightly. Pinching, twisting, and rolling. And that's kind of pulling the material out, which is tapering it, because most fingers taper. If your fingers do not taper, you're probably pretty bad at sculpting. Either that or you work for the Gears of War squad. still not worried about the length of the fingers. Now I'm looking at the thumbs. Now, when you lay your hand out perfectly flat, yes, your thumb is always on the same plane as your fingers. However, when a hand is in a natural pose, it's more of a grip sort of thing. So I tend to push my thumb down, so it's not out like that, which is unnatural. It's more like this. In almost every pose a human does, unless they're doing this, or jazz hands or something, you want to move that thumb down. And when you're doing that, you're also naturally giving a nice arch to the body of the hand. I don't know what that part of the hand. This is the palm. This is the back. What is the whole thing called? I don't know. Okay, so now I'm at the point where I'm ready to cut these fingers to size, and when you're making hands, this is the one time you never, ever, ever have an excuse, because your reference is right in front of your face. You're using it to sculpt. Did you notice that? You're probably using your hands. If you're not, if you're one of those people without hands and you're using your feet, you are amazing and I applaud you. But for the rest of you, no excuses. Okay, so you look at your hand. Where are the knuckles? Okay, like I said before, the thumb usually lines up pretty close to the rest of the knuckles. And then the first knuckles of every finger kind of form an arch. Second, form an arch. And you can also put your fingers together and look, oh gee, so the pinky ends at the knuckle of the ring finger. The ring finger ends, just between the tip of the middle and, and you could just keep going and going with the proportions like that. Now the way I like to trim my fingers is with an X-Acto knife. And I like to cut it at an angle upward so that you've got a natural bend and taper to the tip of your fingers that happens if you slice up like that. All right, so let's draw some knuckles on there. So keeping it light so I can adjust as I go. The first time I didn't get enough of an arch, so I'm doing more of an arch. The ring finger and the index finger are usually pretty symmetrical. One thing I like to do is I like to take my tool and press into one side and bend with my fingers, so you get a little bit of that natural arch or bend as you're going. And my pinky is the right length, but it's too thick, so I'll just pinch it out a little further and then trim it again. Now this little pinchy movement is really important to getting the taper on the tip of the fingers, right? Yeah, so you've got pretty good symmetry still going on. We've got all your major shapes laid in. That's good. Yeah, I'd say it's safe to put in some eyeballs.
Cool. So here's a question: do you, first of all, how big should I make the eyeballs? And what's important, because I guess I can just size it myself. But more importantly, do you build around the eyeballs, the way that this is kind of see the muscles and stuff like that?
Okay, I'll show you my eyeball trick now. So once you've got your sockets defined and stuff out of line, you got the sockets defined. Just kind of lay general blob in there. Then, this is another reason why I love this tool. Take it and I poke in where I think the corners of the eyes should be, and kind of
Oh, whoa.
so you're getting magical eyes and eyelids with one tool and a few simple movements. I'll leave the other one for you to do. And then you just kind of smooth that to the side. This one, the top lid, you want to try to pinch it into the top of the brow. Okay, now normally I would add knuckles to these guys. Actually, I'll just show you on one finger. I'm not going to do everything out in detail because this is just for a maquette to get general proportions. But basically I roll itty bitty balls and stick them on there. Where the knuckle lines are. And then I just go in with my tool and smooth those down. So, I think I'm doing is I'm pressing and rolling. You don't want to do a lot of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
You want to get as much just smooth motion. This is another little trick that I do with Sculpey a lot, is when I want to make a shape that's going to fit onto something and get smoothed down, the way I'll do that is with a double pinch motion. So I pinch it in one direction while I'm flattening it to my thumb. And so basically my thumb is acting like the surface that I'm going to smooth it against. And so once I get it there, I'm doing all sorts of interesting configurations with my fingers to kind of get it into the basic shape, like this is the same way I would make a nose. In this case, I'm making a protruding shoulder blade, but it's the same basic idea. I'm making some kind of a pyramid, squashed pyramid. But because I've been doing it against my thumb like that, I've got these nice feathered edges that are easy to blend into the material once you place it on the surface. I forgot to put on the timer, but that's okay. I'm not being super precise because obviously I spend a lot of time yammering at this stage, but I'll be more strict about it as we continue. Okay. And now I think I'm ready to start playing around with my new maquette. Now, let's look for comparison versus the old maquette. So, made them about half the size, and most importantly, much easier to pose quickly without it crumbling and falling apart. This Super Sculpey Firm was several years old at least, which was one of the main problems. I still prefer working with it just because it holds tighter details and it's stronger. But for our purposes, this will work better. So what I like about this pose is that it has the twist that I like, that his head is off at an angle, his back is not straight up and down. I could probably even work a little more twist into it. The way his feet are placed gives it some movement, and the arms balancing out the whole thing gives it more dynamism, I feel like. It definitely feels like he's doing something that, it looks like he's thrashing to me. Like he is really fighting what's going on. He doesn't want this guy to stab him in the top of the head again. It's almost a gorilla-like pose, which matches the proportions that he has, the little legs and the big torso and long arms. But it still preserves his giganticness. If you'll recall, the first pose that I was thinking of was having him down, kind of mimicking Wander's pose, where he's on his knee, or on one knee, and he's got one arm up. What I didn't like about that was that it made him seem too prone, and here it still has some of that. You still see that the guy on top, the little guy, is winning, which is good. But this guy doesn't seem helpless about it. It seems like he's really struggling. He's thrashing about. He's there you go. Okay, so this is a design I really like, and again, what I'm going to remind myself and everyone else is, once you hit something you like, you don't stop there. You don't say, all right, done, on to the next thing. And then for double points, you remember that because this maquette is going to be so instrumental to the design of the whole thing, it's going to drive many hours of work. We want to make sure that we're very, very happy with it, not just settling on something because, oh, finally something looks good to me. So I'm going to take another break for a day, and I'll come back and we'll see if I still like it as much tomorrow. And even if I do like it, I'll probably experiment a little bit more, just because that's the disciplined pro sculptor thing to do. Okay, so I'll set this aside and we'll check out what Angel's working on now.
So, let's see. I'm trying to give it some pretend eyes. That way I can at least look at it.
Alright.
I'm sure Josh has a better technique than I just did.
No, this is a great start. So, one thing, for lips, show you my lip tips. So, once you have your line in the middle determined, I do this rolling motion where I push them up and out, because we want to get a roundness to it. A lot of people want to just like draw a line, and that's the mouth, and that doesn't work. So we start with that, right? And then we see, oh, that's pinched way up or whatever. So you're kind of pushing back and forth a little as you go. It looks like you just gave him a little too much.
Too much clay.
In which case, you can just slide. So whenever you're blocking in the features, which this is still the blocking in part, you're trying to define the angles. So I'm moving my tool in strokes that are kind of I guess it's just defining the angle. Okay, and then the bottom lip, what I like to do is kind of cut that in like that. Cut it like that. And then I always make sure that I'm pressing in the sides of the mouth really well. And then back to the Okay, and that kind of blocks in the general shape. And then I'll go in and start softening. So, making stuff a little rounder. Now, if you kind of push it really down deep in there to define your shapes, then what you can do is you just kind of push it back up, and you have that natural indent rather than just a drawn line.
Yeah.
Right, so yeah, just go ahead and keep refining on that.
Sure.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for day 2 of the Shadow Colossus sculpt. And well, this is how the sausage is made. It takes a lot of trial and error, even for people who have been doing it a long time, like I have, mediocrely. But you get what you pay for. So, all right, there we have it. And I think when we come back, like I said, I'll be working a little bit on pushing past the design that I like and see if I like anything else better. If not, we'll go back to this, and then we'll start on the armature. All right, thanks.